Today, we're gonna break down a simple concept that you can utilize to improve your footwork. This concept, even though it's super simple, is the key to unlocking more variation within your footwork. So be sure to stick around to the end because I promise once you understand this concept, it'll change the way that you look at your dance forever. So let's just hop into this. So this concept really is a combination of two separate ideas. The first idea being the utilization of our bounce. Specifically for everything that we're gonna talk about in this video, we wanna think about this concept of finding and maintaining a consistent bounce as we're dancing. Specifically today, we're gonna think about finding a down bounce, meaning that we're going to bend our knees on every count of the 8 count, or we're going to attach our bounce to that downbeat rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, obviously, when I say that, that doesn't mean that you have to always bounce on every single count as we're exploring these ideas, but that is going to be the base rhythm that we're utilizing throughout the rest of this video. So even if we play around with the tempo of it or we change it up a little bit, that is our base and that is always what we will return to. The second of the two ideas is this concept of our foot placement. Now, when I say foot placement, all I mean is simply where our feet are placed on the floor underneath us. Nothing crazy or fancy about this idea. It's literally just where we decide to place our feet on the floor. This concept is the combination of those two ideas and utilizing them in unison with each other to create more variation for our footwork. So to get started, what we're gonna do first is we're gonna think about finding and maintaining a consistent bounce to the rhythm of the music that we're dancing to. We can play around with different patterns in our bounce and different rhythms, really just trying to attach ourselves to the rhythm of the music that we're dancing to right here at the beginning. Then, once we have this established as a base, we're gonna think about this idea of changing or manipulating our foot placement as we maintain a continuous bounce. Meaning we're not just bouncing and we're also not just moving our feet. So an example of what that could look like is simply finding a step to the side with either foot, or a step to the front, or you could cross one foot in front of the other, or you could replace one foot with the other foot. Boom, boom. Really, there's not an exact science to it. You could step in any direction and with any pattern, but the key is that we want to think about this concept of maintaining a consistent bounce. Even if we play around with the rhythm a little bit, even if we switch to half tempo, boom, boom, or we switch to double tempo. Thinking about this idea of playing around with both ideas at the same time, not just playing around with bounce by itself and playing around with placing your feet by themselves. The two ideas work in combination with each other. And then once you start to feel more comfortable with the idea, you can start to explore a myriad of other variations simply by just changing the placement of your feet on the floor as you maintain a consistent bounce. And really, that's all there is to it. This is a very simple idea, but once you understand how to do it and how to utilize it properly, it is one of the most powerful and effective tools for finding and cultivating creativity and just more variation when it comes to specifically your footwork. The only limit that you're really faced with is where you can place your foot on the floor underneath you and whether or not you can maintain the rhythm of your bounce. Now that we've kind of broken down the concept itself, we're gonna talk about a couple of ideas that will sort of help to give you more direction as you explore this idea. Sometimes when we're faced with an idea where we have unlimited options, it can just feel a little bit overwhelming and like we don't even know where to start or how to structure it. So to start, I'm gonna give you guys 3 different ways that you can play around with your foot placement, specifically having to do with your foot and how you utilize it when you're playing around with this idea. And then we'll break down a few ideas that you can utilize to drill this concept and further integrate it into your personal practice. Now, there are a myriad of different ways that you can play around with your feet when it comes to this idea. But for today, the first of the 3 that we're gonna talk about is this concept of simply stepping. Mundane, back and forth stepping. Now, like we said earlier, we can do things like step to the side, we can step to the front, we can step out and return back to center, or we could step out and change our center. We can step multiple times, and we can even think about this idea of adding in little half steps in between 2 points. So as opposed to simply stepping from back to front, I would instead step back, middle, front. 1 and 2. Really, this concept of stepping, as simple as it is one of the most powerful and influential ideas that I have come across in my own dance journey. Simply taking something as mundane and as simple as stepping and utilizing it as a tool or as a concept for exploration within our movement is extremely valuable, and it has helped me to cultivate so much more variation when it comes to my footwork and helped me to unlock so many new ideas that I never considered before I understood this concept. So that is idea number 1 of ways that we can play around with manipulating our foot placement. Simply adding in a step as we play around with maintaining a consistent bounce. Now, the second of the 2 ways that you can play around with your foot placement is this concept of skating, or of sliding your feet. We don't always have to feel limited to picking up our foot and setting it back down. We could simply think about this concept of sliding our foot away from us as we're bouncing. Now, much like stepping, you can do this in either direction. You can do it by extending a straight leg or a bent leg. You could play around with incorporating some foundational vocabulary with steps like the ATL or the skate. Usually the way that I explain this idea is that you are imagining that you are wearing roller skates while you're dancing, so that instead of always having to step to move your body or to change your center, you can instead simply skate your foot across the floor without it ever leaving the ground. This adds in a super interesting dynamic to your movement. It's a super simple but super effective idea that can add a lot of style to your exploration of this idea. And then the third and final way that we're going to talk about today that you can utilize to play around with your foot placement is this concept of crawling. You could also think about this as the heel-toe concept. Basically, the idea behind this one is to think about utilizing our heel and our toe to change the placement of our feet on the floor underneath us. Now, you could crawl 1 foot away from the body. You could crawl both feet away from the body. You could crawl on 1 foot. You could change the tempo of your crawl. Or you could think less about actually the motion of crawling and more so just about utilizing this idea of your heel and your toe as a means of manipulating your foot placement. But you can see that with just a few simple ideas, stepping, skating, crawling, you can immediately unlock so much variation and so many different ideas to explore. Now, you can feel free to simply just explore those ideas on your own and in your own way. But if you're looking for a little bit more structure, I have some simple concepts that you can utilize to help kind of give you a bit more of a direction as you explore these ideas. The first of the 2 is a concept known as the compass concept. We talk about this concept a lot on the channel, but the idea behind it basically is that we take or utilize the shape of a compass with north going to the top, east going to the right, south going down, and west going to the left. We take this shape and we imagine sort of implanting it on the floor underneath our feet. We want to think about standing in the exact middle of all of those 4 points. So north should be to the front, east should be to the side, south should be to the back, and west will be to the other side. Once we have those 4 points established, we can sort of think about utilizing them as a guide or as sort of a map for exploration. Instead of just stepping to random points on the floor, we can instead narrow our exploration to what it would look like to simply shift between these 4 points. This concept has been really transformative for me, and it has helped to provide a lot of structure when it comes to my exploration of different concepts. And I really think that utilizing this idea will help you to explore the ideas that we talked about today in a more effective manner. And the second concept that I'm going to break down for you guys is this concept that I commonly just refer to as the A to B drill. Basically meaning that for this concept, we will set an A point and we will set a B point. For example, I'll establish my A point in this corner and my B point in that corner. From here, I'm going to think about utilizing all of those different variations and concepts that we just broke down, all of the different ways that I can play around with changing my foot placement, and instead of simply just remaining stationary in the center of the room that I'm dancing in, I'm going to think about changing my placement in the room from point A to point B, traveling across the floor as I explore these ideas. Now you can do this in a number of different ways. You can just simply travel from point A to point B for an undefined amount of time, or you could give yourself a restriction. You could travel from point A to point B for 8 counts and then travel back from point B to point A for another 8 counts. Another way that you could do this is to think about establishing 4 points that you have to travel between. You could think about establishing a point A, a point B, and even a point C and a point D. You could either start in the center or at any of the 4 points that you've established, but the idea is simply to think about traveling between the points that you've established for yourself. This drill is super useful because it forces us to get out of the box of dancing underneath ourselves or of just dancing in one spot in the room. It helps us to break out of our shell a little bit and to just be a little bit more expansive with our exploration. So I strongly suggest playing around with those 2 concepts, the compass concept, just playing around with shifting the placement of your feet between those 4 points, and also that A to B concept, playing around with the different variations and ideas that we talked about in this video, and simply forcing yourself to travel from one point on the floor to another point on the floor. And if you just play around with those simple ideas, I promise you, you will notice a massive change in not only just the variations and the creativity that you feel that you have when it comes to exploring with your feet, but also just in your attitude or your perspective of movement exploration itself. Sometimes the key to unlocking more variation isn't just learning another step. A lot of times what it actually looks like is simply analyzing the tools and ideas and concepts that we already know and thinking about how we can utilize those ideas to cultivate more variation. Oftentimes, it's the simplest ideas that can leave the most profound effect on our practice. So don't limit yourself to thinking that you can only find new variation or explore new ideas with your feet by simply learning a new step. Look at the vocabulary, look at the concepts that you already know, and think about how you can pull from them and analyze them differently to cultivate new ideas and new variation. I promise you, you've got a lot more to work with than you feel like you do. Before we end, I'm gonna hit a quick round with some music just to give you guys an example of the ways that I like to play around with these ideas myself. And that is going to do it for our breakdown of this footwork concept. I hope that this video unlocked some things for you and that it was helpful and valuable. If you'd like any further breakdown of the concepts in this video, be sure to comment down below. If you'd like a follow-up idea or more concepts to play around with when it comes to this idea of changing our foot placement or just our bounce in general, comment that as well. You can also feel free to reach out to me at The Shed on Instagram or TikTok. Also, be sure to click the first link in the description. That'll take you straight over to The Shed's page on Patreon. We've got some exclusive content over there that is not available here on YouTube. So be sure to join as a free member over there so you get instant access to all of our exclusive content and so that you can stay up to date with all the fun and exciting things that we've got going on at The Shed. I woke up this morning to 12,000 subscribers and I just wanted to take some time to thank you guys for your support. It truly means the world to me, and it's so crazy to see that many people are following my videos and interacting with them. It truly means the world, and so from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you guys so much for your continued support of me, this channel, and for your time in watching this video. I'm gonna see y'all in the next one. Peace out.